Hello and welcome to the Mentorprise podcast, your pocket guide to mindset, motivation and mentoring.
So yeah, I'm really excited for our next guest, Nina. So we've got Fran Davies on the show today. And on a personal note, this is great for me because Fran was actually the lady that recruited me into my first ever sales and marketing role just over 12 years ago now. And she's been a huge part of our support network, and she's the COO at Managed Marketing now, and very much kind of a mentor to all the business owners in the network, and an amazing kind of woman, really inspiring as well, and not only a great kind of entrepreneur and businesswoman, but now a mother to 3 and I think a stepmother to 2 as well. So definitely leads a very, very busy life. So excited to see her take on our questions today.
Well, she mentors me personally. And also, you said that she's the reason that you're sat here. She's also the reason I'm sat here. I remember leaving university, applying for roles, and I got a voicemail from Fran, and I was like, yes, this sounds exciting. So yeah, we have her to thank for us both being here right now.
We sound like some fanboy and fangirls today.
I think we are.
Brilliant.
Welcome, Fran. Thank you so much for taking the time to come down and be a guest on our podcast.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's lovely to be here.
Absolutely. And
quite emotional, the reason you guys are here. No, thank you.
You've supported me throughout my career, and I suppose your job title has changed a lot over the time. So it was in 20 years. So how did you start off in the direct sales industry overall?
Good question. Yeah, 20 years. So literally nearly half of my life. Well, I finished university and did a little bit of traveling. So I went to live in Spain for a while. Came back and just got one of those kind of basic jobs. So I was a bit of a data entry person, and then really randomly, because it's an easy job to get, apparently was a dental nurse.
Okay.
And then
you don't need qualifications.
No, apparently not. And worked with this dentist who was just really mean. And actually, after 3 or 4 weeks, it's the only ever job I walked out because she literally would make you cry every day because she was really, she'd worked with the same person for years. And so it was just back in those days, was looking in the newspaper for jobs because that's how you did it online. And remember seeing a bit of an advert and, applied, went in, and it was in a bit of a basement. So just went down and met Ben, who, you guys know really, well as well. And just, literally started there, was initially just really motivated by him. I'd never been in a place that had so much energy. There was, remember walking down the stairs for the interview thinking, what is this place? And just that warm welcome and that kind of energy. And I remember leaving thinking, I've got no idea what this is going to entail, but I really want to work there.
Yeah, the energy. Or something,
just that energy and just his vision for things, and just kind of people that wanted more out of life than, the kind of, what's given to you, and just that kind of real inspiration. So, got back, wrote a letter, saying to him, can you please pick me? And then he called me, and then I started. So, that was that.
Now your role's changed a lot. So initially you were involved in in-house recruitment and office management, and now your title sounds very almighty, the Chief Operating Officer. So what do you do on a day-to-day now that kind of what are your main kind of responsibilities, I suppose?
Yeah, so I mean, obviously it's massively changed over the years, from getting involved with the recruitment side and really building and finding and developing great people, but then, stepping more, I guess, behind the scenes to run the operations, of what goes on day to day. And obviously, people see a lot in the forefront, but actually a lot, as goes on in the back end. So, everything from making sure that the recruitment's working well, the events that we have going on, and essentially making sure that the business is moving forward. So it's a fancy title, but essentially it's different jobs on different days. It's whatever the business needs at that time. And we tend to work on kind of quarterly basis and, have a plan for projects for the few months up ahead. So, it is different, as every single day.
Yeah. Well, you've started getting me involved in some of the planning for the bigger events, and it's quite overwhelming because I just used to turn up to them.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
This is great. But then you're like, God, there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes.
You see what goes on behind, and that's it. It's all the details, it's all the little things, and it's, and that's when you start to learn how things work. That's really cool, because actually you can then shape it how you, you think would be great. Yeah.
So as you said, your role's really changed over the years from recruitment to now operations.
Yeah.
And you obviously got a really busy role and a
Yeah.
busy life as a mum as well.
Yes.
So we kind of want to ask you, like, what are your 3 M's? Your take on our 3 M's, which is mindset, motivation, and mentorship. So
Yeah.
to you, Fran, what is having a great mindset and how important is it?
I think it's everything. Like, you know, your mind, you know, can work for you or against you. That's kind of what I've learned over the years. And yeah, it's an incredible tool. So I think for me, a good mindset is being optimistic, being positive. It's seeing the best in everything. It's turning any situation into that best scenario. And, you know, I really believe we're put here for a reason. So it's actually getting up and doing a great job. And, you know, in our business, you know, lots of different things happen every day, lots of challenges, but also in life, right? So, you know, I've been here for 20 years, which means also a lot of personal things have happened in those 20 years. So
Yeah.
I think it's also just, it's getting up, you know, putting your feet on the ground every morning and being like, look, today's going to be a good day, and making the best of it. You know, that's for me a good mindset.
So seeing the best in every situation on paper sounds quite easy, but when you're kind of in the mix and
in the trenches,
things are challenging and kind of your back's against the wall, like do you have any hacks? Like what do you do to stay positive, or to how do you see the best in every situation?
I do believe that gets easier the more you do it. So that you know, for me now, actually, you know, scenario come up where somebody who's brand new might, you know, get super stressed about, and I'm like, oh well, no worries, you know, I've seen much worse than that. So I think, you know, it is like a muscle that gets stronger and stronger every time. But I think I do a lot of personal development outside of work, which has really helped me. So I do a lot of work just on my mindset and actually, you know, being the best version of myself, but not silly things, but small things, exercise, all of that kind of stuff. If I feel good, you know, if I feel strong, then I feel I can just handle that day better. So you know, as a mum, that is tricky, but I've learned that actually you got to do that, because, you know, if I go down,
the ship's going down with you.
Is going down. So you know, for me, looking after me as well means that I can kind of deal with situations better. And I think just mapping it out, just being logical, you know, and, you know, you'll always find a way. You know, you'll always find a way.
So I love that. So the analogy of kind of, you're on a plane, the plane's going down, the captain's, you know, release all the oxygen masks, the idea of you making sure you put your mask on first. Look after yourself, make sure Fran's feeling good, so she can actually help others.
And I haven't always done that, and those are the times where, you know, you actually feel, you know, you're not the best version of yourself, but actually, you know, it sometimes takes you to get to that point to then actually realise, right, you know, this is, you know, I need a bit of time for me, or I don't know, for me it's running or whatever it is, and actually, you know, I want to turn up to work every day being able to make an impact, being able to help, and if I don't feel good, you just can't do that. You can't fake it, can you? So you know, I think it's put your own mask on first, and you know, then you can
actually help
come
others.
in and help other people. Great. At work and at home.
And you mentioned kind of dealing with people that maybe are less experienced and they're going to go through a challenge that actually to you is very minor because you've been through it a million times, and actually when you put kind of put into perspective, it's a really small problem. But if we go back to when we were new, those small problems are massive problems. Even and this is one thing that I really struggle with, is having sometimes a bit of empathy. Of kind of,
you forgot what it was like to be new.
I kind of like, I see someone go through a challenge, I'm like, just get over it. It's not important. It's not gonna matter tomorrow.
And it's gonna happen again.
So is there anything that you do to kind of try and make sure that you remind yourself about kind of, you know, how I felt when I was new?
I think it is putting yourself back in their shoes. You know, I think it is building that relationship with them, and you know, it is just having that understanding that that's definitely one of my, you know, values is you know, looking after people, caring for people. So actually, you know, I would never dismiss that. It's but equally, I don't want them to stress about it, because I know it's not a big deal. We can kind of get through it.
But it's at the time for them. That's the worst thing they've ever had to deal with potentially.
Yeah, exactly. So maybe it's helping map it out for them. You know, this is the situation now, but look, we could do this, this, and this. you know, and sometimes, it's just taking that emotion away from it so that you can be a bit more logical.
So they can see the wood from the trees almost, and like
exactly.
there's light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah.
Great. So our second M is what is motivation to you, and what kind of maybe what motivates you as well.
So motivation to me is it's just that kind of what gets your fire going on a daily basis. You know, it's kind of what's at the end. But actually, for me, it's also really enjoying that whole process and that journey. You know, so my motivation is working with people. It's helping people. It's, you know, whether it's my children, whether it's, you know, you guys, whether it's, you know, new candidates, is actually, you know, I think we are put here for a reason. And, you know, I think I'm good at that. I'm good at helping people. So, you know, getting that best version of themselves. You know, I think once you've got that, you know, reason for doing something, actually the motivation just comes. You know, you come in early, you do the right things, you know, you have the right habits, and actually then it's easy because you've got that fire in your belly, and you know what sparks, you know, you, if that makes sense.
And have your motivators changed in the last 20 years? Like, were the things that worked for you in your first year different to what's working for you now?
I think we change as people, don't we? You know, we evolve. You know, I'm not the same person as I was 20 years later, but I think lots of my characteristics are the same. And, you know, the essence of Fran hasn't changed, but maybe my behaviours have, or what's become more important to me has over the years. But I think kind of that fire in my belly and what I'm good at, and, you know, I've become much better at listening to myself. So if I'm enjoying something, if I'm passionate about it, if I'm, you know, if it's feeling easy, then for me, I'm like, I'm on the right path. If I'm feeling that, do you know what I mean? It's kind of not working for me, then actually I can tell that that's not something, you know, that maybe I should be doing.
What do you mean, as in like in tasks you're doing, or is it?
So, you know, so that's kind of just that gut feeling, you know, if you're doing something and you're like, oh, you know, this is not feeling easy, whereas actually when you're enjoying something and you're passionate about it, you know, you feel like you're on the right path, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I suppose recently I've kind of got to a point where I've recognised what my strengths are more so.
Exactly.
And then it's kind of working with your strengths rather than trying to just like look at what you're not good at.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And then the third M is mentorship, and I think you've had the I suppose pleasure to be a mentor for lots of people in our industry, but also internationally. You've been, I suppose, been in contact with people from all around our industry, all around the world. From your experience, what makes a great mentor? Because we're going to have people listening in today that are, you know, embarking on their career in sales and marketing. They're involved with now learning how to coach and mentor people, and even really experienced mentors that have already been doing this for, you know, 5 to 10 years. But from your experience over the last 20 years, what have you seen from the best mentors?
Okay, I think it's to be a good mentor, I think you have to you have to have maybe walked in those person's shoes. You need to know how to be able to help them, but I think it's a lot more than that. I think you need to be available. I think you need to give people time, and, you know, the kind of person that is, you know, if they phone, you're going to answer. You're invested in them doing well, which essentially comes back to what I said at the beginning, is really caring about what they're doing and wanting them to succeed. And I think, knowing what their goals are, being a good listener. But I think the basics are coming down to really caring for that person and being really available.
Well, just from my personal experience, because like you've worked with me a lot, and I feel like I'm getting a bit emotional thinking about it. I don't know why, but there were points where I wanted to give up.
Yeah.
And I think something that you really did for me was that you didn't give up on me. And like even when I was, you know, kind of literally the door was about to close, you always like reached through and were like, hey, I'm here. Like, and I think we went for a run actually.
Yeah, I remember that around the Bristol Harbour.
Yeah.
I think that's a really good point, and I think it's easy for me not always to see that, but I think it's really, I always have more belief in somebody often than they do in themselves, and it's really seeing that kind of whatever it is in that person, and things do get hard sometimes, and, you know, you do get knocked, but it's being that person that you can be like, look, you know, it's not that bad. And I think sometimes it's you can't see the wood for the trees. It's you can't see that perspective. So actually, a good mentor can hopefully help show that path for you.
When you mentor someone, do you know when is the right time to part ways, or are you won't give up on that person?
What if they want to leave, or
yeah?
I mean, look, I think you don't want to be putting in more effort than that person is themselves, and I think that's kind of quite naturally comes to a close, if that makes sense. And you know what I always say to someone when they're working with me is, you know, phone me when things are not going well. And I think that's generally what happens is they phone you when everything's going well and it's easy and it's all positive and they got a team and or whatever.
But they're stuck in their head.
Whereas they then vanish. And actually that's where I'm good at then checking in. I'm like, well, no, we're invested, you know, and that was exactly that with, I remember sitting with Emily and Preet in the coffee shop where the whole team had gone and it was the three of us and it was like, look, let's start from here, this is where we're going. So you know, it's really it's not giving up on that person, but you can't do it for them. That's the other thing.
That's a good point.
You made a really good point there. Often we see how good people are, but they didn't always see how good they are, because as humans we're very good at kind of looking at what we're not good at and kind of what we're comparing ourselves against other people. And Emily in our last show, she spoke about the importance of her kind of like running her own game and focusing on, you know, her performance, no one else's, and kind of taking that pressure off. But so when you do see that people have tons of potential and tons of ability, what kind of things do you say or do to help them realise their potential, or help them get out of their, or stop listening to the chimp part of their brain that's telling them they can't do it?
Yeah, I think in our business we're always looking to move forward. And I think what I like to do is actually also show people where they've come from, okay? Because as humans, we're always wanting to do more. That's how the brain's programmed, is like, you know, when did you guys ever think we'd be doing a podcast? But now it's like, you know, we'll be wanting to do like the next best thing, and that is how we're programmed. But I'm a bit like, but look at what we've done and look at what you've done. And actually it's reminding that person where they've come from and actually really enjoying that whole process. Because there's no gold medal at the end of this. Do you know what I mean? We all have X amount of years and
there's no finish line.
There's no finish line. So it's actually, I think by showing them where they've come from, what they're good at, you know, our business it's good and it's bad, because actually you're always chasing something, but actually, you know, and we're always improving as people, but you know, there is no finish. You know, once you get to, you know, one stage, you want to move forward to the next. So
the curse of ambition.
That does tend to help, because then that gets their confidence back. And then it's celebrating, I think, those small kind of wins along the way.
So really helping them understand it's an infinite game rather than a finite game you're not going to win in business.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And again, you know, I've had the pleasure of working with you for the 12 years that I've been in this industry. And you've given me loads of great advice over the years. But for you, what's a piece of advice that you've received that you still think about today?
Does it have to be one? I was
thinking no, please go ahead.
There's just kind of 2 or 3 things that I think genuinely have really helped me. One, I think you kind of spoke about with Emily, but I'm going to go through it kind of anyway. So Ben, you know, who first recruited me, he always taught me that we can't worry. There's no point worrying about things we can't control. And I think still now to this day, that massively helps me in, you know, work and out of work. So I think that would be huge. My dad, obviously, he was huge. Real, you know, entrepreneur, real influence, and he was very much like, you know, if everybody's going left, don't be afraid to go right, you know. And actually I think in my just how I am and in my career, like sometimes to make a change or make a difference, or you know, you don't have to follow the crowd and you can do things a little bit differently. And I think, you know, that's always kind of stuck with me. And then lastly, James, who I work with, he, I guess, has taught me to do, if you do it properly, you only will have to do it once. So it's really doing, you know, he always says the right way is the hard way. And actually that is true, you know, with everything, whether it's, you know, do you want to go for a run? No, it's raining, go, you know, or in business, it's actually put that extra effort in, do it properly, do it well. And, you know, then you're not going to have to do it again. So, sorry, you got 3 bits.
No,
fantastic.
Very good bits, on that last one, it's I suppose the discipline in those times, because the easy path is the one that has the least resistance. And, you know, going uphill to get to do it properly.
Yeah.
Have there been times where have you always made the right choice, or is it from trial and error that you've kind of got to listen to that advice more so?
No, I mean, look, nobody's perfect. I'm definitely not perfect. But I like to think I always try, you know, and I think that's the thing, is when the more responsibility you get, or as your teams grow, you're not doing it just for you. You know, it's actually then become, I think, easier to be disciplined because you've got more responsibility. You know, it's the same with looking after kids. It's, you know, you can't not do things. It's like you got to keep them alive, and so
things that you wouldn't do for yourself, but you do for them. Yeah,
but that's what I mean. I think if you're enjoying it, that discipline then becomes easier, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I love that idea as well that you said, what James taught you, of kind of, if you can do something, do it properly. And you know, my dad said to me years ago, like, buy cheap, buy twice.
Yeah.
And if you go to a tyre garage for your car and you buy the cheapest tyres, the budget tyres, because they are £60, they're going to wear twice as quick, and the performance is not going to be very good. So in business, you're very much of the mindset, if we're going to do something, let's do it properly. It might be a little bit harder, might take a little bit longer, but actually it means that we probably have to revisit that again.
And it's always, I think we like to be not ahead of others, but actually just setting our own standards for things. So just with experiences we give, or how things look, or just how we are with people, certainly obviously in recruitment, how we treat people, how we speak to customers. You know, we want to make sure everything we do is of that excellent standard. Do you know what I mean? And I think that's, you know, 20 years later definitely served us really, really well.
Well, because you mentioned about like your dad's advice of, you know, when everyone's going left, don't be afraid to go right. And you've kind of been the driving force for a few new things in, you know, the Mantra marketing sphere, like the labour of your love, the Mantra magazine. And I think I remember you telling me that when you came up with the idea, I think it was very much like, well, you know, if you want, try it. So did you just really see the value in it and not give up on that idea?
Yeah, I think it's, you know, it's looking ahead. I think looking outside sometimes of our four walls and our industry, and seeing, you know, what other businesses are doing, or, you know, like I said, I like to do my own learning outside of, you know, our business. So yeah, I think if you have a good idea, it's not, you know, always giving up on it, it's believing in it. And, you know, these ideas require a lot of effort and a lot of work. And actually, I think sometimes if you get going with it, then other people can see because it's in your head to start with, right? So you have to try and get people to see what you can see. But yeah, I definitely think it's been of value for sure.
Great. And you've been super, like I said, successful in your kind of role for the last 20 years. And helped a lot of other people become really successful as well. But what are the things, and we call it the shit that no one sees, like what's the shit that we don't see that you do repeatedly that makes you the person you are today?
Okay, so I mean, look, that is a lot of what my job is, right? it is things behind the scenes that nobody sees. I think the key things are, and it's not the boring stuff, it's what makes things tick, but planning. I think it's looking ahead of what others can see, so trying to be that kind of visionary, if you like, and not just having those ideas, but getting things going and putting things into fruition. And then I think just a lot of care and attention with the details. So with any project that we have, or with anything, any events that are going on, it's actually, there's hundreds of details behind the scenes that, you know, nobody would know, but that's the idea, is that nobody knows, and they walk in and it's all seamless. And then I think as far as the team and working with people, I think it's just the care and attention with, you know, people you're working with. So following up with everything. I'm a real believer, if I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it. If I say I'll phone you at this time, I'll phone you at this time. I'll always get back to people. So, I think people in our business, they need often support, and, you know, that's a lot of what I do behind the scenes, is making sure everyone's okay.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Okay, and then I suppose our kind of final kind of section here is about core values, because all of our businesses, and I think most businesses in the world, kind of follow some core values, but I think individually they're the things that you would live your life by. What would you say are the core values that you personally follow?
Okay, I think these have definitely kind of evolved over the years, and I've probably got definitely more than 4, but just to pick 4.
This is just the 4th question.
So first thing for me is like people matter. Like people, that would be one of my mottos, is people really matter. So whether that's family, whether that's friends, whether that's colleagues, whether that's a new candidate, it's giving people my attention and that kind of care. I think that's huge. I think being grateful is really important to me, because actually what I found is by being grateful, that gives me perspective on, when things maybe feel like they're not going well. It's like, well, maybe it's not going well for us, but that's amazing for somebody else. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think actually that really helps me put things into perspective. Being bothered. So this is one that my husband and I have been working on for a few years, and it's actually just be bothered with everything. Do you know what I mean? It's like, if you be bothered about caring for yourself, be bothered about, phoning a friend, be bothered about, putting a project in properly. Do you know what I mean? Whatever you're doing, again, it's doing it to that really good standard. If that makes sense?
Is that similar to the concept of like being present? So it's not just doing things half-hearted and...
Yeah, just doing it properly. Do you know what I mean? In our house, cooking's really important for the family, and it's like, look, you could get a take. We could put something in the nuggets and chips in for the kids, but no, like, be bothered, cook them a proper meal. It's better for. Do you know what I mean? And actually, it goes back to what I was saying before. It's harder, but actually, it's better for you. You feel better. Yeah. You don't want to go for a run. You go for a run, you feel good. So I think that's definitely one of my mottos. Yeah, those would be the top main ones, I think.
I love that, being bothered. For our listeners, in the sales team, all the mentors, the coaches, I think that will really resonate with a lot of them. Just to, speak to every customer like they're the most important customer of the day. When you've got someone in your team walking in the morning for training, make sure you're gonna, you've got it planned, and you put 100% effort into that person, so they actually get value from that day. And I think I love that, being bothered. I love that idea.
Yeah, I suppose with what we do, there's an element of repetition, isn't there?
Yeah.
So, for example, recruitment, contacting a candidate, for you, it might be the 50th person you called that day, but for them, that's the first encounter they're going to have with you.
Yeah.
So that thing about being bothered to really listen to them, or to read their CV and be interested in their answers, or, if you've planned a sales impact for your team member and it's the 50th time you've run that impact, but doing it in a way where it seems like it's the first, I suppose.
Well, that's it. It's the first time they've ever heard it, isn't it? And then I think the last one, and this is what, I'd like to think, when I'm not here, people would try and remember, is just bringing that positive energy to whatever you're doing. And, my 12-year-old and 10-year-old sometimes moan at me, I'm ranting in the car to them about, but it's that kind of... people feed off that, and it's like you can come into a room and really lift whatever's going on there. Yeah. And that's not just what I want to be able to do at work, but actually, at home as well, because, we're only here once, right?
I can't say I've ever been anywhere with you where I felt that you've brought a mood down. So,
a black cloud.
You're definitely the person that brings light to a room. So whether you're trying or not, it's definitely working.
Yeah.
Unless you're in an elevator with Fran, because fear of small spaces.
Oh yeah, no.
Don't
get me in a lift.
On the ski trip on the gondola, because it was really windy when it stopped.
You can see my face.
Mid-mountain, I think definitely Fran brought the mood down for a second there.
Internal breathing there.
I didn't even notice.
Exactly.
I wasn't even aware. All I know was that when we got down from that glacier, you said we're not doing that again.
Oh God, yeah.
I think I made a comment and Fran was like, Rob, don't.
Not now. Yeah. You started shaking it.
But Fran, I love the whole interview today. You've everything's been about kind of people and helping others and caring and giving a shit, that I call. And so, like, on our last guest, Emily, she said that relationships are imperative.
Yeah.
So important. Actually, a lot of her message was about her team, understanding them and knowing them and getting to know them and making sure they know that she cares. So, like, how important are relationships to you?
Relationships are everything. Like that's what it's about. It's not an exchange. I give you this, you give me that. It's actually genuinely getting to know people, and that's what life's about. We're all here to be together. And, you know, the great thing about our business is you do it with the team. You know, you're not doing it on your own. You know, I was due to get married in the pandemic, and obviously that didn't happen, but I think we had about 120 people on the list, and 60 of them were from our business. Do you know what I mean? But that's because you do get to build friends along the way. So yeah, it's investing in that relationship, but not because you want something back.
Yeah, okay.
It's because it's like, because you care, you want to get to know that person, and you know, that hopefully comes across genuinely, but actually that really helps as well.
Yeah.
So
I think that's a good reminder for me sometimes, like working with people, you might get frustrated if they're, you know, not picking up certain things, but rather than thinking of it like, you know, we need to get you to this point, it's rather than how can I help you to be better?
Yeah, exactly. And everybody is on their own path. Some people aren't going to pick things up, you know, as quick as you do. You know, we are not as good at Excel as you are. We never will be, and spreadsheets and numbers. But, you know, everyone has their own strengths. And I think that's the other thing, is looking at, you know, what are someone's strengths? What are they good at? And actually, I think if you see that, actually, you then stop looking at what they're not good at, because we're all not good at a lot of things. And actually, you know, it makes it much nicer for you as well.
Yes, absolutely. Well, thank you very much, Fran. It's been very enjoyable.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, my pleasure. And we'll get you on after another 20 years.
Yes. Oh, no. I'll be in my 60s. Oh, my God.
You'll be resting, you know, on the coast, I'm sure.
Thank you, guys.
Brilliant. Been a pleasure.
Great
Thanks,
job.
Fran.
Thank you.
Celine, that was a great conversation with Fran. So interesting. And I've known Fran for years and years and years, but kind of I've heard her say things then that kind of I've seen her do, but kind of not actually necessarily kind of heard her talk about what she does before. So I was really impressed there.
Yeah, you know, same. She's given me so much advice. I actually feel like a parrot on her behalf now, where I'm now coaching people and I'm saying, I remember Fran saying this to me, and you know, this is what I'd give you as advice now, and it's almost like generational kind of tips. And you know what she says there, absolutely, she's not just saying that for lip service. I see her doing that in her every day.
Especially that point of being bothered. Like if you're going to do something, like be bothered to do it properly, like to put 100%. And then what I say a lot is kind of how you do anything is how you do everything. It sounds like if she's going to put a name to something, she's going to put 100% in and make sure it's done to like a great standard. And I think that's a great kind of way to live your life by. You
can just tell just by the way that she conducts herself, but she really does care about other people. And I know that she's always wanted to help me and everyone she's mentored. It's not about her own agenda. I suppose her agenda is that she wants you to do well, and that just really came across.
Absolutely. That's probably why her reputation is so great across the network. Yeah. Brilliant.
Thank you very much for listening to the Mentorprise podcast. We want to give some recognition to people that have made this happen. We want to thank Luke and the rest of his team at Access Creative College, who have given us access to these fantastic facilities, and also to Edward Collis Films for all things to do with videography.